Hello again, everybody, and welcome in to the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of The Athletic, who is out at Haugh right now. I am Mark Grote of 670 The Score. I am actually at The Score right now. Dan and I pulled in different directions today. We are all over all of it, though. What's going on, Mr. Weedsy? How are you?
Yeah, what if I told you, Grote, that today in the locker room at Haugh, I had conversations with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Ozzie Trapillo, and Jalen Johnson. That's quite a little sampling of that locker room, isn't it?
Those are what I would call plus personalities, those three gentlemen that you just mentioned, who are at the very least always engaging in conversation.
All of them at very compelling stages of their personal journeys within a season that's very relevant to the Bears, and so it's fun to catch up with these guys. As we've talked about, when a team is playing meaningful football at this stage of the season, it sets up for a lot more enjoyable back and forth when you're walking around that locker room, and we can get more into that as the week goes on.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week on the podcast, whenever it was, that there was that actual moment this season where I did feel a jump in the pulse of the locker room. It's never been a bad locker room. Heck, I've talked about it many times. I didn't think it was a bad locker room last year when they had a season in which they lost 10 in a row, and they might have become closer because there was a lot of agreement on the leadership in that locker room. But even on a team that has been winning all year long, yes, there has been a jump up in the locker room, and it does, like you said, it makes a difference for them, for us, for the fans, for everybody. So it is just really deluxe stuff happening with the Bears right now. But there is some real things going on. This is, man, obviously injuries are always a big deal week to week for the Bears and their opponents and for any game in the NFL. But there are some key things going on for both teams on their injury reports. And the key things you need to know about the Bears, and this is the Wednesday injury report as we were recording this podcast, Take the North right now. Luther Burden did not practice on Wednesday because of the ankle injury. We knew or had a strong indication that Rome Odunze would not be practicing. He did not practice today, did the Bears wide receiver. The good news on the Bears injury report is Tremaine Edmunds, who has been activated into his open window after having been on injured reserve. He was practicing on Wednesday in a limited capacity, but he was indeed out there. Tyson Bagent, it was back after having been sick as well. But I think I gave the key stuff from the Bears side of things. Dan, what else can you add to that? And what is your reaction to what we're seeing Bears injury?
Yeah, Cole Kmet still limited also. And it's just, there's so much focus this week on the absence of Micah Parsons for the Packers. And you look at the Bears offense and you see the pass catchers who are missing or limited. And you say, man, this is going to require some chess here. Now they've got a guy at the board that's really good at it, maybe one of the best in the business in Ben Johnson. But you have to acknowledge your own limitations while sort of seeing what Green Bay looks like in contrast to what they were 2 short weeks ago. This is an interesting time here, and it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what offensive plan they're able to piece together. If Burden and Odunze do indeed remain out, you're going to have to find somebody else to step into these roles. We've seen it all year. Obviously, Zacchaeus is around. You've got some other options. Devin Duvernay took on a bigger role down the stretch on Sunday. So what does it look like when we get to Saturday night?
And I'm always fascinated by that part, and that would be the Ben Johnson part, that where he loses big guys, but that might open it up for somebody else. It might open it up for Ben Johnson to do something with the player that he would not have done with one of the guys, the would-be injury guys. The thing about Luther Burden, though, is that he's been really good. The last 2 weeks, he has made some of the biggest plays for Bears wide receivers. And then just in that Packers game, I call that his high quality over quantity that day. Luther Burden in the Bears loss to the Packers that is fresh in our minds. 4 catches, 67 yards, and every single one of the plays that Burden made was a play of consequence or just a big play in the first game against the Packers. So that's the guy, man. That's the dude. The Luther Burdenness of all of this is where I'm really concerned right now.
I'm picturing one of his catches at Lambeau Field right now, and it was maybe one of the top 3 throws that Caleb Williams had that day along the Bears sideline, down the left sideline, and it is a big gain. And so you lose some explosiveness without him if he is indeed not able to go this week, you have an interesting situation because this game has a ton of consequence to it. It's got a lot at stake, but then you also have to be very cautious if you're the Bears and not trying to overextend yourself, right? Like, and make sure that you don't jeopardize your roster and your depth for the coming weeks. I will say this: another little bit of news out of Haugh today with DeMarco Jackson being named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. It just feels like every time the Bears lose someone of consequence, someone else is ready. You know, it goes back to Jake Moody stepping in for Cairo Santos earlier in the year. It's DeMarco Jackson this week. It's, that entirely depleted linebacking core in Philadelphia that played so well. They just have had quality depth and ready depth. And I think that's a tribute to the way this coaching staff coaches and the way these players prepare to be ready to be the next men up when they're needed.
It's what happens with winning teams in any sport, getting contributions from guys you might not have expected to do. That's what good teams do. Like in baseball, it's somebody winning the game differently for us every day. And you call somebody up and they hit a home run and they contribute in a game. It's an essential part. Most teams that win in football or in sports have contributions that come from guys you never would have expected and may never see again after this year.
Yeah. And look, like this is, I just can't even express the amount of, I guess it's eagerness that's around the city, that's around this building, that's around this locker room for what awaits on Saturday night. This is a test that people are eager for, right? Like this is what you want. This is what you play and you prepare and you practice for, to bring your rival to your home stadium on a primetime stage with first place in the division on the line. Like it is like a palpable eagerness that is everywhere right now. And it's really cool to have that at this stage of December, after all of the, not to quote Counting Crows here, but all the long Decembers that we've had to suffer through over the years here, Grote.
That's so funny you bring up the Counting Crows, because I saw some sort of like documentary I was watching about them the other day. And the question is, Dan, are they good or not? Like, you know what I mean? It's the Counting Crows. Are they good? I mean, we know they have catchy songs. The melodies are irresistible, but are they good or not?
I'm a bad test audience because while they were part of the soundtrack of my late high school and early college years, we saw them when we lived in North Carolina, and it was one of the worst concerts I've ever been to. Adam Duritz was like super high and super depressed, and it felt like his entire objective of the night was to bring everyone down. Like you got back in the car afterwards, you were like, crap, now I've had other people that have gone and seen their shows and said, top 3 show of their life. And so he just caught him on a bad night. But to the are they good question, that night, no, they were not good.
All right, that was a good enough answer.
Long December, and there's reason to believe.
Like Rain King. You can't not get that song stuck in your head. But is it a good song?
This is why I like doing this show with you, because we can find ourselves on some paths, and it's like we connect on this level, and it's an interesting topic. It's like we got to start putting together our April and May episode lists and put this stuff on there when we're searching for content.
No doubt about it. So for now, put it away, studs. Put it away for us. Are the Counting Crows good? We will get to that. But yes, it is the appetite for Bears fans to be part of games like this. They are insatiable, and there could be some satiation, I suppose, on Saturday night if the Bears are to win. What am I saying right now?
I love it.
What's going on?
We'll do the satiation episode next week.
But the Packers injury report is to be reckoned with as well. I thought, unless I'm seeing it wrong here, Dan, I thought that Christian Watson was going to give it a go on Wednesday, but according to the injury report I have in my hands, the wide receiver who burned the Bears badly the first time around did not practice. Chest, shoulder. Does that match your information, Weedsy?
You've got all the Packers information. I have none at this moment, so what you're staring at is all news to me.
Okay. Well, let me give it to you, because also,
I know there's a lot.
Evan Williams, the really good safety for the Green Bay Packers, did not practice due to his knee injury that's going on. I got a couple other key guys here too. Zach Tom, the offensive lineman, the starting right tackle for the Green Bay Packers, and just reading up on him and from reports this year, he's like their best offensive lineman, did not practice, and he left the game against Denver. So that is fascinating to look at. What else here? I have Tight end Josh Wiley is in concussion protocol, did not practice for them. Wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, who burned the Bears 2 years ago. I see you, Dontavian Wicks. He did not practice due to his ankle. And that is it. That from what I'm seeing on their injury report right now. But that's the I hate to put it in these terms, but the Bears have the edge on the injury report for sure right now, and that is a factor.
Yeah, it is. And that's what December and January football are all about, and we'll see how they handle it. Obviously, we're going to go really, really deep into this matchup in our next episode, our weekly game preview episode, because there's a lot in this matchup that's compelling to look at. You and I have had conversations, and it's like, okay, like there's a very micro level set of topics this week, and then there's this macro level big picture stuff that we want to get to today. And so
Yeah.
it's fun to juggle those two I guess, what would you say, bowling pins that we're juggling?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I love a good bowling pin juggling gesture out of you. So that is great. Yeah, you get treats every once in a while if you're watching on YouTube, which we, of course, invite you to do in the various forms in which you find this podcast, whether video or audio. And we'd like it when you subscribe as well, by the way. We don't say that enough, but we appreciate when you subscribe, and then you get the benefits of having a subscription, which doesn't cost you a cent. So we would appreciate it if you were to do that. But Dan, talking about dreaming big for the Bears, because they have entered a place in their season where, are they good? Are they good? Yes, they're good. This is a good team. I have checked that box. Are they good enough to get into the playoffs? Yes, I think that they are. I think that they are good enough to get into the playoffs. Might the Bears be good enough to win a playoff game? That's not something I was saying when the Bears were winning earlier in the season, but I'm pretty close to saying, yes, they're capable of winning a playoff game right now. In other words, Dan, we're allowed to, at this point, Bears fans are allowed to right now, as you said earlier, dream big and make of this, like, predict what you want out of the season, because not much is outlandish at this point, winning or losing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I said earlier this week that I think that they are more than capable of winning every single game they play from this point on. That's the 3 remaining regular season games. It's whatever postseason action they're afforded to have. I did mention my conversation today with CJ Gardner-Johnson in the Bears locker room, and part of it was surrounding the fact that he's only known the playoffs in his career. He's never been on a team that's missed the playoffs, which you bring him into this building and you're like, wait, what? Like, what's that like, as you bounce around to teams and you're just constantly in the postseason? You remember CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think, first telling us on Take the North when he first got here that he sensed something special in this locker room when he got here, right? And this is a guy who doesn't just say that because he's obviously experienced it in other places. And today I circled back with him on that, and he said, look, like, there is a collective bond and a collective purpose inside here that you're feeling every day. That's given the Bears this momentum that's created 10 wins and given them a chance here. But then along with that, we had a little side conversation about being a team that's flawed and how that can actually be a strength, because it really heightens your awareness of how detailed you need to be to survive. And when you're in a survive and advance tournament in the postseason, sometimes having that little awareness of, oh God, like, we got to be on it here, works to your advantage. And so it's an interesting sort of side topic for a team that is right now afforded the opportunity to dream the biggest dreams.
Yeah, I love it. And that's a great nugget and, sort of insight that you gave right there. The other thing too that I love, that I haven't felt in a long time, and you've been on the beat longer than I, Dan, and that is these players, like, one after the, so many of them, and the coaches too, that they were pissed off after that Green Bay loss. And, of course, it sounds like, but it really did. Sometimes it's just something that we project on athletes and put out for our own motives and things like that. It left a bad taste in their mouth, and they seem to, putting it as nicely as I can, seem to really want a piece of the Packers. And I haven't felt anything like that in a long time.
And one of the reasons that's interesting is because of the way the schedule's set up for these 2 games in 14 days, where now it's been 3 straight weeks in this building of talking about the Packers to some extent. There was the lead up to the first game, there was the recap of the loss, and now there's the rematch, right? And so for 3 straight weeks, we've been immersed in Bears Packers talk, and that just heightens everything. And you can feel what you're talking about there, because it wasn't like, oh yeah, we lost to them in week 3, we'll play them in week 13, and you're going to carry that around, but it's going to be sort of suppressed for 2 months. This has been at the forefront now for 3 weeks, and so I think there is this urge to bring them to your building, to take your swing at them, again on a primetime stage. And you feel that around here. And I think you feel a confidence that you match up well enough that if you play well on Saturday night, you're going to walk out of there with a win. And that's a cool place to be as a team.
No doubt, and as Dan said earlier as well, we'll get into the nitty gritty and Dan's keys to the game and all of that good stuff on the next podcast after this one that we're recording here on Wednesday. But here is the other part of this, and we are looking ahead. I understand there's so much right in front of us right now, but you can dream a little bit. And then the other question, the thing that I have been questioning all year, and something that I know what my answer was to this early in the season, like even after the Vegas win, which seemed like a fraudulent win at the time, the sustainability factor of what the Bears are doing right now. And I do think, Dan, and if I have to just zero in on one reason for sustainability, it is, of course, Ben Johnson, because I think that there's a trust there. The running game, and the offensive line. The offensive line, maybe just the offensive line, because that makes everything tick. And look, I give a ton of credit to DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai, but having a top 5, or however you want to characterize it, offensive line, like there's sustainability in that. You and I both know that.
You said 3 things there that are all connected, right, to the hub of this whole thing. And it's the offensive line, it's the running game, it's Ben Johnson. And all of those things are connected to the vision that this head coach has for what he wants this football team to be and what he wants the engine to be. And you've seen that come to life earlier than I think we all expected it to come to life, to this fashion, right, to this extreme. And they've been really good there, and you would just expect that to get better. Ben has the trust of this entire building, and we get the assistant coaches once a week out here, and Dan Rochard talked today and really was glowing with his praise of the way that Ben Johnson can take apart an opposing defense every single week, that he can see an opposing defense and then know right away how he wants to attack it. And then not only have the vision, but articulate it in a way that creates action from the coaches and players that gets results. Like the Dan Rochard testimonial from today was like almost goosebump inducing, because this is a guy who's been around forever. He's coached with Sean Payton. He's been to a lot of different places and seen a lot of different things in football. And for him to be just so glowing, right, and sincere with that praise, because we know Dan Rochard is a guy who can be very bluntly critical of a lot of things, and he was again today on a number of topics. But to be very just forward with, this is an X factor in our building, is that we have this coach who can put us in position every single week to win a game because of how smart and calculated he is.
I love talking about her. You telling us earlier this year, because I was not in on this particular conversation with Dan Rochard, but he was highly critical of Darnell Wright, right? Didn't he give him the proverbial kick in the butt, didn't he?
Yeah. It's just honesty, right? It's just, okay, like these are the things you're good at. Also, here's the list of things that need to be worked on. And he does it in a way that it's disarming. Like you don't put the players on the defense. They understand that you have their best interests in mind, and then you go about working on the flaws to try to bring out your personal best to then help the team bring out its best. It's cool stuff. And it's happening all over here. And so on the sustainability piece, for me, without question, the coaching staff is reason number 1. It starts with Ben, but it also continues with Dennis Allen, who you don't fear is going to be bolting your building anytime soon for a better opportunity, right? Like, he seems like he's going to be in place for a little while. And that was a big change for Matt Nagy when he had a flip from Vic Fangio to Chuck Pagano, and they never quite got back to the level that they were at under Vic, and all of a sudden the sustainability was jeopardized because of that. And so I think this coaching staff gives the Bears a chance to really take this a long way.
Yeah, you hope that Dennis Allen has gotten the head coaching bug out of his head, or that other teams have looked at it and said, yeah, he's better off as a defensive coordinator. But I think, sometimes guys just find their places. And you're right, man. Like, that like then you Sean Desai coming on through with the Bears back in the day, defensive coordinator, sustainability at that particular position is huge.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and you're going to have some coaching turnover. We all know that's coming, but you've got the key boxes checked, and that should give you a chance. I'll say this within the confines of this season, because this is some personal experience that I can lend to this. That topic with C.J. Gardner-Johnson about a team being, acutely aware of its flaws. I had this previous life covering college basketball down on Tobacco Road, and I can relate this season and this team to 2009, 2010 Duke basketball. And so this is Grote, a team that when they left the ACC tournament, they were like the Bears. They were a surprise success story to some extent. They were winning ugly a little bit to where people questioned, well, is it, are you going to be able to win the whole thing if you're playing close games, and maybe you're not as talented as the teams you go up against. And I remember writing a piece coming out of the ACC tournament saying they could lose their first tournament game. Like they're that vulnerable to be gone on the first day of the NCAA tournament. They could also be cutting down the nets at the Final Four at the end of it. Lo and behold, 22 days later, that team was on the stage singing One Shining Moment because they were really well coached. They were locked into the presence of every game, and they found a way to survive and advance that day, And I said that's why, like, when you get into what the Bears are about to enter, which is a one and done tournament, in January, all you have to do is be better for 3 hours, right? And you have to find your path to being better than that opponent for 3 hours. You have a coaching staff that is going to find answers for you. You have a group of players that has shown that it doesn't get sort of frazzled under pressure. And so like when you start to I guess, assess the viability of this team being in a Super Bowl, you say, hell yeah, it's realistic. And this is me talking, right? Like, this is the people that put memes out for years saying, oh, Danny Downer, like, why is he never positive about the Bears? This is as positive as I've ever been with this team, maybe right on par with 2018 when they entered the playoffs, because they've got everything you need to survive for 3 hours on a weekend in January.
It's true. I don't know if I'm ready to stand right as close to you up there, but I'm not going to knock you off of that pedestal. And you stated your case very well. What it ultimately then comes down to, like, everything that we talked about is legitimate. Ben Johnson is the most important part. The offensive line is great. The turnovers are terrific, but it is a man that wears the jersey number 18 and Caleb Williams, that as much as the heat is taken off of his plate with the running game, it is going to come down to ultimately the throw, because it's a quarterback league. That's what's going to happen in the postseason, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to come down to that man, Caleb Williams, who we know will be here in the future as well as we continue with that theme. But Dan, you came across some audio from a high-profile NFL Network, ESPN guy, Kyle Brandt, in regards to that guy, Caleb Williams.
I did, and I'm going to get to that second, because I think it's more prescient for us to hear from Ben on Caleb and set the table for a little bit of the Caleb discussion, and then we'll circle back on this, because I think there are two parts of the same conversation happening here, where it's going to be really interesting to kind of unpack this with you in real time. I personally think two things can be true. It can be true that Caleb Williams is without question ascending from where he was in the spring to where he is now. He's made improvement. He's on the ladder up, right? There's no question about that. He's also taking the coaching from one of the best offensive minds in the business right now in Ben Johnson. And the fact that bond has seemingly crystallized a little bit here over the course of the regular season is encouraging. It can also be true that you have a long, long way to go, right? Like, and I think there's a realization inside this building that, our passing game needs to get a lot better, and the quarterback needs to become more consistent, and he needs to become more dangerous in a lot of different areas. And so playing that whole balancing act is a big deal. And so our producer, Adam Studzinski, brought us this audio from Ben Johnson earlier this week. This is a little bit of his assessment on where Caleb is at right now, particularly coming off a promising performance against the Cleveland Browns. We'll listen to this and react on the back end.
This is a long journey that we have up in front of us, and so we're trying to make as many strides as we possibly can right now, from the springtime all the way up until this point. And it's a continual basis. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue to go on, and he'll be a lot better off a year from now than he is here and now, and he'll be a lot better off 5 years from now than he'll be a year from now. And so that's a continual growth process, and I think he understands that. I'm just really excited about getting the basics down of this offense. I think the pre-snap procedure is something we've been harping on for a long time, and that's really started to come to light. And I think it's it's unlocked a lot of elements of the shifts, the motions, the cadence, the things of this offense that we want to do to attack defenses. And so that's a starting point. The more reps he gets on every single concept, the game's starting to slow down for him. And so that's encouraging to see. He's throwing some of these in breakers with anticipation, which I think is a tough thing for young quarterbacks to do at times. And so he's trusting what he's seeing, and he's delivering accurate balls.
You guys talked last week about getting him off to a fast start. He starts 0 for 3 and then 5 in a row with some pretty good chunks there. What unlocked him on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. The part of the 0 for 3 was a drop, so it wasn't I thought he was throwing the ball well throughout pregame, and I thought that carried us into the game. So he played really well.
We talked before about how he's not the kind of quarterback that you necessarily go, oh, let's give him 3 easy throws and get him in a rhythm. Have you found kind of a way that you think gets him into the game the way you want?
We're working through that. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes they're the simpler variety. Other times we're going to be aggressive, and he embraces that. He, like I told you last week, he says, you call it and I'll make it work. And he has a lot of confidence in himself. That's a big part of what we do in that pregame routine, is making sure that, the first series isn't a warm-up series. We're starting hot. We talk about offensive philosophy wise, 65 to 70 bullets in a game. And we can't afford to waste any of those plays just trying to get the engine started. We got to start off guns a-blazing, and I think he really embodies that mentality.
Grote, there's 2 things in there at the sandwich ends of that are really compelling to me. The first part is Ben being very open about that this is a long journey, and you can sing it like Adam Duritz if you want. It's a long journey, and there's reason to believe.
By the way, on the other side of that, who is good that I wasn't sure if they were actually good when it was happening? Alanis Morissette. I think she deserves more respect as a great rocker in the time that she was, and doing what she did was great. So yes, I wonder if she needs more legitimacy.
I put that down for May 16th. That's our May 16th episode, the Jagged Little Pill episode that we'll do there, which will be thrilling.
Dan, it's one of the greatest albums ever. But go on, please. Yeah.
The back end of Ben there acknowledging this need to start faster, and as the stakes of these games get bigger, for him to say, look, we can't waste bullets. They can't be trying to get the engine started, all through the first quarter. The engine's got to start on the first play of the game, and so there's an urgency here for Caleb that he's got to step up and respond to. I think it's been very impressive, again, to just kind of watch him navigate week to week here. I thought the Cleveland game was as comfortable and as confident as he's looked in a long, long time. And you hope that they're able to find that on a more consistent basis. But when you're listening to Ben there and hearing how honest he is about his quarterback, what do you hear?
Well, yeah, I'll bounce a couple things off of you other than what you had highlighted here. I loved hearing, and I know we hear this in sports a lot, so it's easy to breeze past it and just look at it as a trite comment, but he said that it's starting to slow down for him. And I think that, and Ben saying that about Caleb, that should be music to your ears, especially if you believe like we do. And Dan and I can tell you, knowing Ben Johnson a little bit, the stuff, he's pretty transparent with us. He's pretty real with us, not going to tell us every single thing. So when a guy, and he's not prone to hyperbole either. Right. So when he says it's starting to slow down for Caleb Williams, that has to be listened to. It was also, Dan, music to my ears to hear, anytime I hear from Ben Johnson talking about the pre-snap stuff starting to work for Caleb, because there was barely any of that last year, the ability to pull that off. It was rough in training camp. It was rough in the preseason. It was rough even early on in the season. The cadence stuff, all of it. Whose fault was it that they jumped off sides? Was it Caleb's fault? Whose fault was it? So to hear that is working, because one of the great benefits of being at the games is, and being where we are in the press boxes, there we have the all 22 right in front of us. And to see all the pre-snap stuff from that level, it is like a symphony when it works out. And you see, especially watching like Colston, Loveland, and Komet, where they start and where they end up and what their assignment ultimately is. It's really fun to watch, and I haven't gotten to see much of that through my time covering the Chicago Bears.
No, and like you can tell Ben's eager to get to much more, when they can get a lot more complicated with their motions, their shifts, and some of the things that they're doing to strain and confuse a defense. It's like this thing's going to evolve, and it's going to evolve in an impressive fashion. So to see the leaps they've made offensively this year at the very early stages of getting this thing implemented is huge. And that's a reason that you feel very encouraged. Now, to set up this next bite, I will say this, that I don't think there should be a fan base in America that has a better understanding of how difficult it is to A, have success, B, sustain success, say that 3 times fast, sustain success, and C,
not.
find a quarterback that can last for you for a long time. And yet, I feel like this city at times has a faction of this fan base that gets so intoxicated by the energy of the success that they skip like 10 steps, and then the mission accomplished banner starts getting hung, and you see people all over the place dunking on how good the Bears are, and like they're never going to turn back, and they found their and you're just like, slow down a little, like just slow down a little bit. Like we can acknowledge that there's some encouraging things happening without again scheduling the parade and hanging the mission accomplished banner. And so I guess maybe that's a good segue into something that came across my algorithm on Wednesday morning from NFL Network's Kyle Brandt. He is tracking the, I guess maybe not really tracking, but for those who are wondering if Caleb Williams has a chance to become the Bears single season all-time passing leader. He's on pace right now for 3,825 yards. That would be short of 4,000. It would also be 13 yards short of Eric Kramer's record from many, many years ago. But that topic came back into the forefront because of Kyle Brandt today. I'm going to play this. I'm going to get your reaction, and then I'm going to react.
Okay.
Here we go.
As a football guy and as a native Chicagoan, I could not give less of a damn if Caleb Williams throws for 4,000 yards. Time was the Bears being the only team in the NFL who never had a 4,000-yard passer. It was a punchline. It was a pockmark on the Bears from years of bad offenses and bad teams. And it was an embarrassment that they were the last franchise invited to the party of the modern offense. But now they're a 10-win team. They have a brilliant head coach. They have a superstar and waiting quarterback. They're trying to be the best team in their division, even their conference. Who cares what statistical number of passing yards Caleb lands on? It is small-time statistical loser stuff. Do you know the reason Caleb likely won't hit 4,000 yards? It's not because the Bears' passing game isn't good. It's because their running game is good, because their defense is good. Caleb's not going to throw for 4,000 yards because Caleb's not going to have to. That's no longer a pockmark. That's a flex. In fact, I openly hope he doesn't do it. Dak Prescott's going to pass 4,000 yards this weekend. How's his season going? Last season's league MVP didn't throw for 4,000 yards. Last year's Super Bowl MVP didn't throw for 3,000 yards. But Joe Burrow threw for nearly 5,000 last year. How'd his season go? Caleb will hit 4,000 yards some year. It's inevitable. And it will be lame and a petty side story in the context of everything else he's doing for that franchise. I don't care that a Bears quarterback hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards in over a century. I care that a Bears quarterback hasn't thrown for 1 yard in a playoff win in over a decade. That's the streak you should care about. And I know for a fact that's the one that Caleb cares about.
I can pick up right where you left off.
First time hearing that, right? That's your first time hearing that?
First time hearing that. The reason they have no playoff wins is because they haven't had the right quarterback in place because, and I've said this a million times to people who say things like Kyle Brandt just said, the whole great running, great defense, just enough offense thing has not sustained success for the Chicago Bears ever. That is the fatal flaw for this organization. You do need to ultimately have a quarterback that can throw for 4,000 yards. I'm not saying that you don't have to have a superstar, elite quarterback, good quarterback, but that's something the Bears, up until I guess Trubisky was drafted. Oh, sorry. That was that. That was Mitch Rosen, ladies and gentlemen, the boss of the score. Apparently, I told you the walls are thin here at the score, so I am disrupting.
But you're reacting with passion, Mitch.
What's that? What's that? Oh, happy holidays to you too. Yeah, Dan's right here. Yeah, you want to come?
Tell him we're live right now.
Yeah. We're live. We're live. Oh man, I should have asked him about the Counting Crows. He seems like a guy who would go to a Counting Crows show too.
He just jumped in and he took a charge on your you were coming down the lane with some force there.
I was coming down the lane with some force just because like if you've watched the Bears your whole life and you find the whole 4,000 yard thing to be preposterous, and it's preposterous that there hasn't been that quarterback, but you haven't had playoff wins because you haven't had a competent quarterback in place.
So this will surprise you little. I want to take this down 3 little paths here as we go through this. The first one is this idea that, it was a punchline. It was a pockmark. It was an embarrassment. No, it is. It is. It is still that. It is still all those things until the Bears.
It's a fluid situation.
because as you just said, Mark, like the whole key to sustaining success in this league is to have quarterback play that is top tier and can consistently push you down those roads. And so look, you can provide me some outlier examples of where quarterbacks didn't have to be elite to win at a high level, but to sustain winning at a high level, you have to be there. Here's Tom Brady in the last 7 Super Bowl years that he was a part of, averaged 4,467 passing yards. Here's Patrick Mahomes in the 5 Super Bowls seasons that he has been involved in, averaged 4,426 passing yards. That is what high-level quarterbacks of high-level teams do. They get themselves on the express lane and they pull their team there. And so, yes, the Bears are succeeding this year without their quarterback having to throw for otherworldly statistics. But there is going to come a point where Caleb's got to go there, right? He's got to go there. That's why you draft him number 1 overall. I look at this concept of lowering the bar. Ben Johnson told you before the season started he wanted Caleb Williams to strive to complete 70% of his passes. Caleb's at 58% right now. Okay. It's not meeting the standard, right? Eventually passing production is going to have to skyrocket up as well. And so this knee-jerk reaction that because you're having short-term success, you're able and allowed to lower the bar is crazy to me. Do not lower the bar. Ben's standard is this good enough to win the final game in February on a Sunday when everything's on the line? And if it's not, we got to keep pushing. I'll turn it back over to you there, and then we can go on.
I'll just say, look, there's been plenty of one-off seasons, fun seasons that we've seen the Chicago Bears play in their history, and I'm not even adding the 1980s, and I'm talking about years where the Bears had excellent defense and terrific, like the Super Bowl year, right? I mean, and then it fell off the table after that year. It ultimately was not sustainable not having those things. The fact that when I say that those things, the quarterback, the running thing is essential. I want to make that very clear. Of course, you want to have that and have to have that in terms of what Ben Johnson wants to do in this offense. That is great. That is why a large part of why I think that it is sustainable going forward. But eventually, yes, you do need that guy at the quarterback position to complement or to, I should say, lead all of those different phases.
So I get it. I understand that Kyle Brandt's job is much different than yours or mine. And I get it that we're in this world now where it's performance disguised as analysis, right? You're basically trying to create content that is delivered with confidence, right? And if
I'm part of a talk show too, Dan. I am, if you want to use the word guilty of it, I am guilty of it as well. It's what we do. Right.
But I think what it represents is this sort of 0 to 60 thing that we were talking about at the outset, where it's the Bears fans and Chicago in general understands that it's one thing to have success. It's another thing to proclaim we're there, and there's a lot of we're there that starts to bubble up during these moments. It's a life comes at you fast league, right? A life comes at you very fast league. Kevin O'Connell's online too, right? He'll tell you all about going from coach of the year to 11 losses to 14 wins to last place, right? get on the horn with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn and ask them how the last like 6 months of their year has been, right? Like you talk to Joe Burrow. What's Joe Burrow's life been like since he almost won a Super Bowl, right? Like got to the biggest game in the sport, almost won it, and now seems to be on this roller coaster that's making him like dizzy and nauseous and not even sure if he wants to be on it anymore, right? And like, so there's all these examples. The Ravens this year are 500. The Chiefs are eliminated from playoff contentions. This life comes at you fast in this league, and it comes at you like really, really hard, like a freight train that has no lights, you know, and like, you just better be ready for that, you know? And so like my point on this is I think this season and this point in time in the season is all about the first part of our discussion, which is celebrating what the Bears have accomplished, acknowledging the achievements that are still within reach for them this year. And then in the big picture, really, really realizing that the sustainability question is way more difficult and it's way more complicated and it's way more involved. And they are a long way from proving anything to anyone that they're ready to sustain this.
Because we've lived it. We have lived it. And a lot of our audience has lived it. You've seen the lack of sustainability despite some of the great seasons they've had. And we celebrated them, I think, proportionately. So great stuff today. One other quick question for you, Dan. I have a friend who went and saw Maroon 5 recently. Are they a good band or not a good band? Because they're in that category too of you either hate them or you love them. Where do you stand with Maroon 5?
I'm kind of indifferent on them. I'd never seen them live. They
Nor have I.
They were certainly, but back in the days where we were burning CDs, I certainly had a handful of Maroon 5 on the burn CDs in the car, you know.
Okay.
What's that song?
I don't know. You didn't do it justice at all.
I sure didn't. But I like this episode. We can go through some of this stuff. I know we both agree that Cypress Hill was a great band.
Oh, just insane in the membrane. Just like everything is fine in the big time. Yes, we can do that.
So I got one more question for you before we get out of here, because this was a very big topic at the end of last week. Things come up at the end of weeks here. You're part of this generation. There was Saturday nights back in probably the late 80s. There was a show on. This came up, and I don't even remember how this came up, but 2019, when we went to London with the Bears, I checked into my hotel there and I got room number 227. And
yes.
Do you remember the show 227?
Of course.
Yes. So this became a running joke throughout the week where I was just doing is it Jack Hay? Was she the actress who played Sandra?
Yeah, Mary.
Mary. So we did this for the entire week in London, and it came back Friday to where I couldn't stop doing it for about 5 hours. And it was like, ooh, Mary, I got a date tonight. Ooh, his name is Derek. Ooh. And we were going through it. And then I pulled up, because YouTube's a beautiful place, you can pull up Sandra montages, 10-minute Sandra montages on YouTube. And I was literally sitting at my cubicle while we were waiting for the locker room to open, and I was like belly laughing at how legitimately funny that character was back in those days. Ooh, Mary, I can't believe this.
I'd have to look this up, but
a lot of innuendo from Sandra. Let me tell you that. A lot of innuendo.
It's a great show. I should revisit that show because I think it was supposed to be a Marla Gibbs vehicle who had been Florence on the Jeffersons, and she was Mary. She was Mary Jenkins, but it became about Jack Hay, and I think there was a spinoff called Jack Hay. Okay. If I'm not just making stuff up right now, I believe that was the case. But yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little revisiting.
Lester, can I borrow some of your cologne?
That's here it is. I just brought it up. 1985, a good year for the Bears, by the way. 5 seasons worth of Jack Hay, Harry, Marla Gibbs, Hal Williams, Regina King.
Regina King, yeah.
Yes.
What was her character's name? Because she was always, Mom, Calvin's driving me crazy.
Brenda Jenkins, is it here? I get the first 2 letters and then the ellipses here.
Ooh, maybe let me give that girl a little talking to.
Curtis Baldwin as Calvin Dobbs. Helen Martin was in it. You'd recognize her if you saw her. No doubt about it. But yeah,
I don't know if we're allowed to play sound clips from there, but we may need like 1 per episode through the end of the regular season.
of Jack Hay.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about this music. That show might have been really funny, actually. I don't know if I thought that way back then necessarily, but I watched it. But I think it might have been a better show than I even gave it credit
See,
for.
I'm glad. Like, you never thought when you put on your headphones today that we were going to wind up here.
No. And I'm sure Maroon 5 was not on your list either. So I would say this has been a successful podcast and maybe a perfect place to end the podcast.
Oh, it's been, we had perfect places to end this long before that.
We probably did. That's the beauty of editing. Actually, we don't edit. I don't think we do a lot of that at all. And that's fine. You guys get all of it. The flaws, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it here on Take the North. For Dan Wiederer of The Athletic and frequent contributor to The Score, I am Mark Grote of 670 The Score. For our guy Adam Studzinski, the executive producer of the Take the North show, telling everybody today, we're happy that you listened to it. We're happy that you watched it. Dan, have a great day.
The Rain King. Great talk. See you out there.